All right, so we're doing a two-part series on invention with Mustafa today. And starting off, I want to ask you, how do you invent?
How do I invent? Invention comes from being able to see gaps. Really, that's really what it boils down to. We have a saying in my division, be furniture. And basically what that means is go to the place, it's in the Toyota lean language, it's called visiting the Gemba. But it's really going to the place where the activity takes place, whatever activity it is you want to invent on, and just sitting there and kind of experiencing it and then seeing what's working, what's not. There's things I've done where I've sat in emergency departments for a night, or I've taken over a hospital bed and slept in it for 24 hours and kind of listened in on stuff, or I visited a dental office and just sat in the back office for almost 10 hours straight, or sat 4 hours in the waiting room. So it's just kind of experiencing it from the people's perspective. And the trick really is to just listen and see what the experience is and then start noting what it should be. I think that's kind of how I invent stuff.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So after you've discovered a problem or something that you want to work on, what's next?
The next thing we do typically is we'll do an ideation session. And so what I'll say is, I found this really interesting gap in the workflow of whatever. And then I'll bring in a bunch of people in on a conversation. I'll bring in, like, let's just say it's a healthcare kind of a thing. And I'll bring in a doctor and a lawyer. I'll bring in a nurse and a data scientist, a database administrator, a service desk person, an operations nurse kind of a person. And I bring all these people together and I'll say, all right, here's what I experienced in this area, and here's what I'm thinking. What are the things that you guys are thinking about? And then we start talking about, like, what can we create? Is it a service or is it a product? And then we get into that mindset of, all right, what are the features that we want it to do? What are the enhancements that it's going to do to the existing workflow? And then what's it going to take to build it?
So it seems like you have a diverse group of people. How do you set up the structure of this team and select the members?
Yeah, that's cool. That's a great question, actually. We think about product development as like Ocean's 11. I don't know if I can say that, but everybody has a unique skill set. I think those of you guys that have followed me on LinkedIn in the past, you know that I talk about building teams based on your weakness. Really, that's what I do, is I build my teams based on my weaknesses. So it ends up being that you have this diverse group of people. Diversity breeds strength in everything. And so you got people who are mechanical engineers and thought leaders and operations leaders and service leaders. And so that's really how I think about it when I'm building a team, is what are the gaps that we have in our expertise? And that's why working in this department, you can experience such a high efficiency of the people that are in it, because we hire people based on their strengths, and then we really focus in on that and not so much their weaknesses or areas they need to fix.
So the ideation session sounds super interactive, super fun. How do you run those?
Basically, it's just a whiteboarding session. So get people to sit across from us. There's a picture we're going to share. We did an ideation session today on a particular product. Usually I like to have code words for the product's name so that not a lot of people can get wind of what it is we're working on. This particular one is called Project Tweety Bird. And so essentially it's getting this product out, or this idea out, in front of all these people, explaining to them what the current state of events are, what the current workflow looks like, and what we think the future workflow ought to look like. And then we have these sessions where people are like, well, and one of the things that we do is that we'll assign one or two people to be devil's advocate. I find that that's super helpful when you're building a product, is having assigned devil's advocate, and really their function is really to find the flaw in every part of your idea. And the more flaws they find, the better they are at their job of being the devil's advocate. And then we start writing those things down on the board. The board is called the devil's in the details. And basically it's every risk they think. And if we can build for that risk, I think you have a really productive session, but also you're going to have a successful product. So getting a devil's advocate, getting people who are not just ideators but are implementers, they can talk about their experience of how we implemented last time and what did we figure out that we had to fix and stuff like that. So it's really a series of just, there's no structure. I think that a lot of times people make the mistake of putting a lot of structure to creative sessions. I think that's a big error. I think that keeping it fluid and open and agile enough where it can flip-flop between topics and subjects makes it a much more powerful session. And so then you come up at the end of it with a list of things that you'd like to see. Then I do this exercise where I say, all right, what are the features this thing should have? And everybody just starts saying their features, and we start noting those down. And at the end of it, we get a story. Here's the problem. Here's how we think it ought to be, and here's how we think we're going to make it be that way. And that's really all of it in a nutshell.
That's super cool. I bet you can, look at a lot of different trends of thought in sessions like that. But so what's the next step?
The next step really is that for people who see things far into the future, one of the most difficult tasks, and I think that innovation people that are watching this can, they'll be nodding their heads going, yep, I get it. One of the hardest and most difficult things we have to do is explain to our business partners the value of the product that we're about to tell them about, or the project. A lot of times it's 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line of when it'll actually be effectively used. And so for business leaders, it's very difficult to make a financial decision today on something that may or may not happen in the future. As a futurist or as a person who is in the innovation and invention space, we think we see it so clearly. We've sold ourselves the idea, and we feel that end result. It's not just a knowing it, it's a feeling that we have. And I think that that's what drives us to getting to that place. And so the next step for us is really putting together a presentation of the ideas in such a way that it can be presented to people who may not be able to see that far out, but they can kind of see the potential of it. So there's a whole series of stories I have on this one project that I did, and one day I'm going to share it. But really the trick is to be able to help ignite the imagination of the business people to see the value of that thing you came up with.
So this is just the first of a 2-part series on invention, and I'm really excited to hear more about this and dive into the details next time.
Thank you so much.